Hi Kenvians, welcome to episode 23, no wait, 24 of Discovering Steven Universe. An indirect kiss. Ha 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 ha. Ah, who am I kidding? I've made worse jokes. Anyway, I'm gonna be completely honest here. This episode, it's strange. It's like, on one hand, it feels like it's probably the simplest of any of the episodes I've watched so far, and yet it had some of the most impactful moments I think have happened so far in the episode. Not the most, definitely. I mean, there have definitely been some very strong and emotional moments, but like this episode, it seemed to hit so many different layers very well in very quick succession. But again, still, it felt like one of the simplest episodes. But let's get into why I liked it so much, starting with my first favorite part of the episode. And I mean, this is just throughout the entire episode, really. But when Amethyst cracks her gym and everything that happens afterward. Well, I mean, first of all, I was surprised because I thought I heard a crack when she hit the bottom, but I thought it was just kind of like, oh, whatever. But no, she actually cracks her gym. And just everything that happens to her from there on throughout the episode, starting with the gigantic googly eye, which was hilarious. And then she starts talking backwards, which I actually do wonder if someone had taken the audio there and reversed what plays for us, whether or not it actually is like some actual understandable lines that come from that, or maybe they just made it gibberish. I don't know. And then, it continues. Amethyst cracks her gym some more. Eventually, she's not even really connected to her torso. Like, her head and foot change place, and then all the limbs, like, spread out, like, connected to her body by noodles. It was really bizarre, but hilarious at the same time. So, yeah, just from the moment Amethyst cracks her gym to when she finally gets fixed, that was just hilarious and definitely one of, I hesitate to say it's my favorite part of this episode, but definitely one of my absolute favorite parts of this episode. Because, I mean, as much as I love Amethyst, she can be kind of annoying at times. So just the way the comedy worked for this episode just really worked for me. Moving on to my second favorite part of this episode, it's Steven's moment with Rose's statue. And just that entire scene where he's, talking to her in a sense, or rather talking to the statue. And it's really sad. It leaves you, ready to cry. Kind of like Connie crying at the story, which is actually my third favorite part of this episode. But you're just so sad because you think about the idea that, you're trying to live up to your mom's legacy, and you are her legacy, literally in Steven's case, because he has her gym. And yeah, it's such a powerful emotional moment. So, and that's why Connie crying, one, because it was kind of adorable and funny, but also it's just like, that's how I felt watching that. So it's just like, oh my god, it's so sad. I mean, I wasn't tearing up, but like, I was just kind of like, oh my god, it's so sad. But anyway, moving on, my fourth favorite part of this episode was when Steven finally does cry and his tears hit Amethyst's gym, but it doesn't heal him. And the reason why that's one of my favorite parts is because of how he responded. Oh, come on! And that is just the purest form of how I feel with things sometimes. It's like, you work and you try to do something and you finally get there and it doesn't work out the way you want it to. So just the way that moment ended up is why it's one of my favorite parts of this episode. Just like, oh, come on! I feel you, Steven, I feel you. Even though you're a cartoon character and not real. Anyway, my fifth favorite part of this episode is when we get Steven's version of what Pearl said at the end of their mission after saving Amethyst. And like she first started saying that, you know, you're kind of taken aback. You're like, why is she saying this to Steven? And then, you know, Connie says she didn't really say that, and it kind of feeds upon, you know, what you're assuming from the beginning. Is like, Pearl wouldn't say that to Steven. Why would she do that? So obviously she didn't actually say that, but as he said, you know, that's how it felt to him. So, you know, and that's perfectly understandable. But just the way it's said by the woman that versus Pearl, just it in hindsight, it cracks me up, and I just thought it was a great moment. Now, my sixth favorite part of this episode, and I guess really any of the episodes that they've both been in, Steven and Connie are friggin' adorable. I absolutely love these two characters together. They are just adorable and so absolutely cute, and I'm pretty much sure they're going to, at this point, you know, they're basically going to be like romantic interests or whatever, however they decide to portray it, because I mean the characters are only what, 10 maybe 12 years old, somewhere in that range, so there's really only so far you can go with that, I assume. But at the same time, it's just it's adorable, and I love them. I ship them, quote unquote. But alright, my seventh and final favorite part of this episode is when Steven's healing powers are revealed, and we get the indirect kiss, because, you know, and get the slobber from his mouth, apparently, when Connie drinks it, which is kind of gross. Actually, it's very gross. It heals her eyes. She can see now. She doesn't need her glasses anymore. So I thought that was a really interesting and well done way of revealing his healing powers. However, that does bring me to my one annoyance with this episode. Healing spit? Really? Really? Healing spit? I know it's a kid show. It's meant to be funny. But healing spit? Really? Really? That's one of the most bizarre things I've ever heard. But yeah, okay. So that's my one annoyance with this episode. And as always, if you have any of your own favorites, any of your own annoyances with this episode, please do leave them in the comments down below. And actually moving on from there, I do have a track of the episode. Obviously, it's not the real name of the track, but I kind of named them based on what's happening during the scene. So my favorite track of this episode has to be when I called it "When the Fountain Flows," and that's when Rose's healing fountain gets unclogged and the water flows, and it's beautiful music. It really reminded me of, you know, some of the music that plays when Steven is in Rose's room, and well, you know, before the nightmare aspect of it, obviously. But yeah, just that music that plays, it's absolutely beautiful, and it really did end what was going on a beautiful note. So I really did love that. So yeah, that's my track of the episode. If you have any of your own, and if you know the actual name of that track, please do feel free to let me know what it is. Moving on from there, I do have a couple of quotes from the episode. I really need to be better about that so it doesn't just kind of turn off and on while I'm talking. But my first quote of the episode, and this is just simply because of how adorably, you know, well, I would say childlike, but just how perfectly Steven is portrayed as a child, just very simplistically. It's like after he tells the story of when Amethyst fell down, cracks the gym, and Pearl says, "I knew this would happen. We need to do something to make sure this never happens again." And Steven says, "And that's why there's a fence." It's perfectly executed. And, you know, we as the viewers are obviously like, Connie, it's like, that's it? So what else happened? But yeah, that line right there from Steven was just perfect. Now, I do have a second favorite quote, and it's actually just a touch of dialogue between Pearl and Steven. And it's after Steven says something along the lines of, "I guess I'm just too tough to cry." And then Pearl says, "Just today you were crying about snakes." Steven says, "They have no arms." Just another example of just Steven at his purest childlike form. And it's just, you know, I mean, I know adults that think stuff like that too. Heck, I'm probably one of them. But it's just like, you know, that, you know, you're getting sad over such ridiculous things. It's like, you were crying about snakes today. They don't have arms. Which, you know, from a child's perspective, I can see why that would make you sad in a way. It's like, you know, if you see lizards and they have their legs that help them move around, but snakes don't. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking a little bit too hard on that now, but yeah, that's why that's my other favorite quote of this episode. And as with everything else, if you have any of your own favorite quotes, please do let me know what they are down below. Moving on to, well, you know my overall thoughts, but I do have a theory of sorts that comes from this episode, and it kind of, sorta helps with my annoyance, based on the title of the episode. And it's this. Now obviously, since Steven's tears are not healing, and it's his slobber, or his spit, apparently, the name of the episode being an indirect kiss. So maybe in future portrayals, whenever he will need to use his healing abilities, I mean, he'll just kiss whatever it is, or like kiss the gym. Since, I mean, I assume it doesn't need a lot of the spit, or at least I hope not, otherwise he'll have to lick them, or spit on them, which is just gross. But that's my theory, is that in the future, it'll be more like his kisses that are healing as opposed to tears. Which, you know, both are romantic and loving in their own individual way. Like how the Gyms were saying that Pearl felt so deeply for the one she loved that, you know, like the tears that came from her gym, I guess that's right. But anyway, like her tears would heal them, and Steven loves people so much that, you know, his kisses will heal them. Again, that's just sort of a theory. It's kind of a sort of a weird one. Again, I'm trying to find a way to sort of get over my annoyance with the fact that it's seemingly spit that is his healing power in the show. But again, it's a show for kids. It's meant to be silly, and I'm probably taking it way too seriously. But that's just my justification / trying to make it better for myself. But anyway, so as you know my overall thoughts on this episode. Again, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great episode. Very simple, but had a lot of elements that I really did love, and it covered so many layers of different things in such that short amount of time. And so it's such a good episode. I really do like it. And again, I mean, we get the dynamics of, or rather the interactions between Connie and Steven, although there's not a lot of it in this episode. They're just, you know, talking together, but we still get that, and I love their relationship together. I think it is adorable, and I hope we get to see it grow as the show goes on. But anyway, moving on from there, the next episode that I'm going to be covering is Mirror Gym, and by popular demand, yeah, actually a fairly popular demand, not only will this next episode, but the one following it will both receive reactions. Now, in order to hopefully try and avoid copyrights, they most likely won't be full reactions, but you will be getting reactions. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you all are wanting to see from me as far as these reactions go. So, yeah, I will see you all next time for the reaction to Mirror Gym. And maybe the review, if I put them both in one video. I don't know yet. Anyway, until next time, everyone, I'm PapaKenn, and Elonzi!